Olympians panel. Iowa Olympian. We just had the Olympics on television throughout the country in Rio. But guess what? There were Hawkeyes in the Olympics many years ago. And when they came home, their luggage weighed a little more because they brought back some, well, Phil will tell you all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, the Sports Information Director at the University of Iowa, Emeritus, Mr. Phil Hattie.
I'm back again, just like a sore foot, but this is our last panel of the day, and we've got some unbelievably qualified people to talk about this year's Olympics and some of their Olympic experiences. We're going to go down, I better not lose my notes. First of all the way down on the other side of the table, Jason McCartney. Jason is a road racing cyclist for UCI Continental Team Bissell. He was named North American Rider of the Year in 2004 by Velo News magazine. He was a member of the U.S. Road Racing Olympic Team in 2004 and 2008. He now lives in Coralville and does an unbelievable job as far as local biking and creating interest for that in the area. Next we have, it's Jason McCartney. Glenn Patton, 1975 to 1998, Iowa swim coach, 24 years. He's the all-time winningest coach in the Iowa swim program with a record of 168 and 63. Believe me, we did not know what winning was in swimming till Glenn got here at Iowa. He had 6 undefeated Big Ten campaigns, 2 Big Ten titles, 1981 and 1982. 5 times he was a Big Ten runner-up. In 19 out of 24 years, he was in the first division of the Big Ten. 16 times he was in the NCAA's top 25. As far as coaching, he coached 11 Olympians 110 times. His swimmers won All-America honors, and he had 79 Big Ten champions. That's former Iowa swimming coach Glenn Patton. Eddie Bannock, former Iowa wrestler. He's a 4-time letter winner, 1980 to 83. 4-time Big Ten champion, 3-time NCAA champion, 4-time All-American. He had a career record of 141, 9, and 1, a winning percentage of 937. He still owns the Iowa record for career pins with 73. He was Iowa's most valuable wrestler in 1982 and 83. In 1983, not just at Iowa, he was named the Big Ten Athlete of the Year. He's a gold medalist at the 1904 Olympic Games, and right now he's in athletic administration at Iowa State University, the #1 junior college in Iowa. Now we're kidding, it's a great school over there. Last but not least, Dan Gable. As Iowa's head coach, he won 21 Big Ten titles and 15 NCAA titles. He had a career record of 355, 21 and 5. He was 130 and 2 in Big Ten dual meets. He coached 45 NCAA champions. He had 152 All-Americans. He coached 8 Olympic gold medalists, 3 silver and 2 bronze. 6-time USA World Freestyle Wrestling coach. And the 1984 gold medal team from the United States, he was the coach. He's considered by many to be the greatest wrestler, without question, the greatest wrestling coach in history, Dan Gable. The title of our panel today is the Olympics, and we're just going to go back and forth, and we're going to talk to these guys about their Olympic experiences. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start with Jason down at the end. Tell us a little bit about your sport. It's a sport that they don't know as much about as swimming, and certainly not as wrestling or track or some of the other sports. But tell us about that, and maybe after you're done with that, your greatest experience as a part of the United States Olympic team.
Yeah, it's my sport was road cycling, so it's a little bit different. We're not in a gymnasium. We're out in the countryside of the course. So in Athens, we had a circuit race we were doing, and to get on the team, I won the Olympic trials in Riverside, California. So it was a road race, a little over 100 miles. So it's pretty tough, hard, and it's not one or two athletes. It's a field of 100 or 100 and more. So it's quite a few competitors and it's also a team sport, so you have to consider all that. So for the Olympic team, everyone has a different role on the team. So like for me in Athens, my role was just basically to get water for the boys, position them in the pack, and get them ready for the finish of the race. So, and then just being a part of the team and being at the Olympics that was everything. It was really a great honor.
Jason, what 04 and 08, where were those Olympics at?
04 was in Athens and 08 was in Beijing, so two pretty interesting places to go to.
You had great trips.
Yeah.
Glenn Patton, I know you didn't actually swim in the Olympics, but you had a great deal to do with a lot of the swimmers that did go into the Olympics. Tell us a little bit about some of your greatest stars that went on.
All right, sure, Phil. I'd like to start by just saying that for all of the sports that you see up front here, participating in the Olympics is the pinnacle of success in our sports, the people you see up here. You know, basketball, football, the pinnacle there is looking to make a big, major, multi-million-dollar personal contract. The pinnacle for us is to represent our country with pride and with dignity at the Olympics, no matter what country you happen to be representing. It's a very fulfilling experience, and one that I was just thrilled to be a part with the young people that I coached that participated in the 11 Olympic athletes that I was fortunate enough to coach. And it's quite a different thing. You know, it's just the athletes in these three sports that we have up here work unbelievable hours because it's all a personal thing. And, you know, as if you read Dan Gable's book, you read where he said, I get up in the middle of the night and go run because I want to do more than anybody else is doing, and I want to do something that I know no other athlete I'm going to wrestle against is doing. And that's the way it is with great swimmers, great cyclists. You know, they just, the ones that really succeed put in a personal effort that is unmatched. And it's an honor to coach those kind of athletes.
Thanks, Glenn. Now, Dan Gable gets up in the middle of the night now to go to the restroom all the time at his age.
We all do, Phil.
Eddie Bannock, without question, comes from one of the greatest wrestling families in University of Iowa history. Ed Bannock, along with his brother Lou and his brother Steve, all wrestled at Iowa. Lou won a gold medal with Eddie at the LA Olympics. So, Eddie, tell us a little bit about your experience, the Olympics there, and wrestling next to your brother.
It was a wonderful experience, obviously, wrestling in the Olympics in Los Angeles, and it was fun to represent the United States and to have my brother in that tournament as well. The thing that struck me about the Olympics was I set the goal of winning Olympic gold medal when I was 12 years old, and this guy had something to do with that when I went off to college, and he helped me with that goal. When I was 20 years old, I was the second alternate at 180.5 up in Binghamton, New York, and I pinned John Peterson, and I beat Chris Campbell, who was the 79 world champion. And he told me at that time, he goes, "You were getting pretty good, but you're not there yet. You need to work on a defense." And it was right. And through his help, through Jay Robinson's help, I was able to go on in '84 and win a gold medal. It was fun. It was phenomenal.
Why don't you, he's got his gold medal with him. Hold it up so the folks can see it there from the Los Angeles.
Now, when we're done here, if you want to take a picture with the gold medal around your neck, you can do so. Don't worry, it's actually been painted with a clear coat of paint to protect it so it's not going to get rubbed off. So it's just my pleasure to watch you put it on and see the sparkle in your eye and just think, I had a gold medal around my neck. So yeah, it's my medal, I get to take it home, but you get to put it on and take a picture, okay?
That's great.
Back when he wrestled, we called him Eddie the Horse Bannock, and He was one of those wrestlers back then with just brute strength and unbelievable talent, and he really made the Iowa program a lot of what it is today. Dan Gable, you had a lot to do with, you're considered maybe one of the best Olympians there ever was, and that's as a wrestler, as a coach, from every aspect. Dan Gable won a gold medal, I think it's widely known, in the 1972 Munich Olympics, and not 1 point was scored against him the entire Olympics. So, Dan, you've done it a million times, but we'll get back into your coaching later, but the thought process going into that Olympics for you, and you know, how you made it through there without anybody scoring a point against you.
Well, I didn't know that that was the situation, you know, and I've coached, or I've seen athletes actually be aware of certain things, and then they go and make the mistake because you make them aware. So I kept my focus this way, and the coaches knew not to say that, hey, you realize not only are you going for the gold, but nobody scored on you. So I had good coaches. They made sure they said the right thing, because you know, it's just, your mind's a big factor, and when you just are focused on scoring and keeping your opponent shut down, it works. But you know, you take some lessons and you learn those lessons. So, you know, a loss I had in my national finals gave me that ability to go unscored upon, just because of the loss of focus at one time. So you got to learn lessons sometimes. But the big thing is, when you learn that lesson, you make sure that you don't repeat that lesson in a negative way, and that's what I did.
Now, did you just want, I think a lot of people wonder, because you were still young, why did you not go for another Olympic medal in 1976?
Well, the reason why is because in those years, the amateur rules were a lot different for the United States of America. It was right when I got done did they start becoming more lenient and give you an opportunity. In reality, to wrestle in the 72 Olympics, I had to pay back a $500 check that was given to me because I made money on the sport in a camp somewhere. And somebody turned me in on it, and it was a violation because you couldn't use and make money in that sport if you were going to compete in it from America. Everybody else in the world had already got beyond that. So, but in reality, again, I didn't really lost that $500 because they went through my parents. My dad paid the $500 back and never even told me. So it's kind of a good story. He didn't want to bother me. He realized that let the kid alone and just wrote the check back. And he told me about 3 or 4 years later after that. So it was one of those things. But at the time, I came and became an assistant coach at Iowa in 1972 at the end. And I wasn't even allowed to sign a coaching contract. I was the director of physical fitness for athletics, but they let me focus on wrestling and assistant coaching. So it was one of those things that I moved on. Plus the fact that, you know, I think my wife might be out there, and I finally looked around and found a girlfriend and found out that there's something else in the world besides wrestling, even though marriage is kind of like wrestling. But at the same time, you know, my focus was kind of getting diverted a little bit, and so I wanted to really stay into coaching more than wrestling.
So if you would have officially signed a coaching contract, that would have eliminated you right there from...
Exactly, at that time. Yep. So, you know, no, you couldn't sign any coaching contracts.
So obviously things have changed now when you see Olympic basketball with players making $50 million playing in the Olympic Games right now. So things have made, you know, it's considerably different from 40, 45 years ago. Jason, you're in a sport that's obviously, you have as much pride in that sport as you know, anybody, Usain Bolt or anybody, but it's not as widely known. If they show cycling, it's probably at 8 in the morning or at midnight on TV, but you've got to have as much pride in the people that are involved in that sport as any of the others.
Yeah, it's I mean, for me, cycling's it's just a cool thing to do. and I think it's really good for you. It's low impact, so I think it's a great sport, and more and more people are getting excited about it, and it's becoming more mainstream as people are realizing that it's kind of cool. So, I mean, in the past, and it was 96 was the first year in our sport they allowed pros in the Olympics. And that, for me, that's kind of a catch. I almost wish it would go back to being amateur riders, or at least U23 riders, just to create that excitement, because it's a little bit different. We race so many pro events throughout the year. We race from the season starts in January and goes until October, so it's a really long season with quite a few events. You've got the Tour de France and all these crazy events. So I kind of would like to see it go back to amateur riders, so they have an opportunity to shine.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, I think, that feel that way. Glenn, as you look at the Olympics now, go back to the years when you started at Iowa. And I want to compare it to maybe the Hayden Fry, because Iowa swimming was, without being critical, was as low as a sport could be at that time. You know, you had Olympics and you had Olympians. You were at Alfred Tech,
right,
and coaching, you know, which isn't the pinnacle of swimming, you know, it was Indiana. But what made you think you could make Iowa a pretty good swimming school?
Well, at Alfred Tech, it's a junior college in upstate New York, a lovely little town, and we were fortunate enough to win 4 consecutive national junior college swimming championships. But I was itching and burning to try to coach at a major school, at a major conference school like the Big Ten. And when Iowa offered me the job, I came here in August of 1975. You're right, Iowa was pretty bad in swimming. We'd been last place in the Big Ten Conference for 10 years in a row. The previous 2 years hadn't even won a dual meet. And I got here and I started talking about what we were going to build, and we were going to be Big Ten champions. And Doc Councilman, the legendary coach who coached Mark Spitz at the same Olympics that Dan wrestled in '72 in Munich, Doc Councilman called me on the phone and he said, this is kind of a funny story, Phil. Somebody from the Quad Cities sent me a little newspaper clipping that says you're going to be the next Big Ten champions. And I said, well, that's right, Doc, we are. I said, I just hope nobody else comes along and beats you until we're ready to. We can't beat you yet, but we're going to beat you. And he said, well, we put that note up on our bulletin board and had quite a good laugh about it. And, of course, I told our team about it, and that really motivated us quite thoroughly. And I was highly motivated to beat them. I wanted to be the coach that stopped their winning streak. They won, I think, 21 consecutive Big Ten championships. And when we beat them, Dan Gable came over to my office and said, Glenn, thanks for beating them, because we're gonna break their record for consecutive wrestling championships in the Big Ten Conference for consecutive Big Ten titles. And they did, and went on to set more than that. What, 25 or 20? 25. 25 Big Ten wrestling titles by our wrestling program. So that's just kind of a funny story. But what I saw, Phil, at Iowa, it was a big old pool, and I had a typical college, high school type of pool at Alfred. The pool was neglected. We hadn't spent much money on it because our team wasn't very good. And my realtor, when he sold me the house when we moved into town, said, Glenn, if there's something I can do to help you, let me know. And so after about 3 days here, I called my realtor and I said, we need to paint the pool. And I said, I'm going to have our swimming team spend Labor Day weekend. That's this weekend. That would have been in 1975. We're going to spend the weekend in the pool painting, but I don't want to ask for money for paint, because we need starting blocks, we need lane lines, we need electronic timing system. We didn't have anything. And so I got the paint donated, and our swimmers spent the weekend painting the pool. And, you know, that did something, Phil. It put a little pride into the program, which didn't have any pride. The athletes had told me they even carried their duffel bag with the Iowa logo toward their legs, so nobody knew they were from Iowa the year before at the Big Tens. And that's kind of embarrassing. But that started the building of some pride, and you have to have pride in what you're doing. You have to feel good about yourself. You have to feel confident. You have to feel that what you're trying to do and your coaches are telling you you can do, you can actually achieve. So that little thing there did a lot to help us establish a winning season that first year.
I'm going to come back to you later, by the way. I'm just want to forewarn all of you. I'm going to ask you a little later about what your thoughts are on Ryan Lochte and what happened in the Olympics, because it's a shame, because there's a marvelous athlete who maybe did unbelievable damage to his career. Eddie, you competed in the Olympics that were boycotted in Los Angeles. How much did that in your mind in any way take away from what you were working for and what you eventually achieved?
No, I showed up to the party and wrestled and won. I mean, they could have showed up. Yeah, I know. In 1980, the Soviets in Moscow had the Olympics, and they gave, then the World Championship in 81, they gave ties out to the United States wrestlers as a joke, which, you know, it didn't bother me. I wrestled the best wrestlers in the world. They showed up at the 84 Olympic Games and won.
That it's considered, they said that maybe the biggest mistake that ever was made as far as the boycott goes, but it didn't take away the talent that we had on that Olympic team. I think we had three gold medalists from the University of Iowa.
Yes.
That the Bannock brothers and Randy Lewis.
Yes.
And Barry was second.
Barry Davis
Took a
second.
silver.
second in that Olympics. Dan Gable, I'd like you can probably answer this better than anybody, because many people, your involvement in the Olympics. They say the Olympics have lost, they were next to nothing. Then all of a sudden they picked up to where they were unbelievably, the interest in it, how much they were watched. And now they say they're losing a little interest, because there's so much going on, on TV and that people aren't watching it. Do you feel that, or what's your thought on that? That, for example, on TV there was very little about wrestling, and I remember there used to be a lot more on wrestling on TV.
Well, you just got to know where to look. I mean, there's 4 channels that are showing different sports at all times. So you have to, be kind of a genius to make sure you don't miss what you want to watch. But it's really not that hard, as long as you get your grandkids to show you how to use the TV and all that kind of stuff. So it's there. It's just that some of the sports are in there for maybe reasons of just people like to watch those certain sports, but they're not really competitive. And when you have that, then it kind of downplays a little bit of what the situation. We in wrestling don't have to worry about that, because our 2 main competitors really are Russia and Iran. And when you're dealing with those countries, they put out some pretty big, tough stars in our sport. But and we have 180 countries that wrestle. But I think that the Olympic Games they really haven't lost any luster. It's just that sometimes the people at the top just need to probably work with some of the people in the middle and at the bottom, and to keep it going as strong. So, it's still the top sporting event that you're going to have in the world.
Well, and with that in mind, it's mind-boggling to me. I think just a few years ago, we came close to them eliminating wrestling. It's one of the original sports in the Olympics. And why in heaven's name did they come close to eliminating wrestling from the competition?
Well, it's not just wrestling. You got to realize these are countries against country. And so people really have a difficult time of accepting not winning. And they really want to win at all costs. And because of that, we're going to have to change a culture quite a bit within each sport to make sure the people that run that sport really are the people that are really going to do a good job with their sport. Just because we got back in and we're doing some things better, that doesn't mean we don't have a history of culture of being kind of a team that really doesn't cooperate with within the other countries. So we got a lot of work to do yet, but it's not just wrestling. But whether we helped ourselves this time or not, I don't know if you watched the Mongolians strip down to their underpants. You know, of course, that's not any different than female volleyball or all the swimmers that are in their Speedos. So, but it's just that when you have your clothes on, you take them off and you dance around and you give your clothes to somebody, which you might not have seen that. But the Mongolians were upset with officiating, and they really didn't have a reason to really be upset because the rules were really what the rules were. You know, you just can't turn around and run backwards in a wrestling match and not get called for stalling, even though you would get away with that in your own country, but you're not going to get away with that. So every sport has to work pretty hard to make sure that you're staying in the sport. But the reason why our sport was a little bit pushed further is because we actually were one of the original sports, and we thought we couldn't be touched with some of our leaders. So our leaders got an eye-opening, and because of that, I think we're going to be better in the future. But it's going to take a little bit of time.
Well, I differ with you in one respect because I actually turned off a basketball game to watch women's beach volleyball.
Well, you didn't differ. You actually just confirmed what I said.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty...
I said basketball is going to win pretty easily. But so they're going to change the channel, and they're going to go watch the Speedos.
I was watching the athleticism. Yeah. Jason and Glenn, I want to ask both of you this. There's been a lot of talk. We're talking about the Olympics now. That, how do I say this? That the leaders of the Olympic movement up there were basically crooks, taking money here and there, doing all this. How has that, or has it, hurt the Olympic movement? Because they were found to be, they were run out of office and, for accepting bribes and all that. And maybe it's happened forever. That doesn't make it right. But what do you think about that? Either one start first.
Well, I'll start out. I think that's been going on forever, Phil. I think there's been a lot of bribery, some of it a little more open, some of it a little more hidden for many, many years. Because getting the Olympic site awarded to your country is a huge, huge multi-million dollar business economic expansion for your country and recognition. So it's happened for a long time.
Jason, what do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not as aware of it just because I haven't been on the coaching side, but I know it goes on in lots of events. So does it take away from the sportsmanship? No. I mean, it's just something they're going to have to work through, kind of like they have in soccer and FIFA and organizations like that.
Yeah.
I think, Phil, you could relate it a little bit to what's happening with the Clinton Foundation, and not to be political at all, but that type of thing has happened throughout our country and throughout the world, even down on the little small local levels. If a local businessman, supports a high school athletic program pretty well, and he needs a favor from the high school, that high school is probably going to give that businessman a favor.
Well, and it's like they've said about many things. It wasn't the fact that he did something illegally. It was the fact that he got caught doing it. Dan, what'd you think of that? Because you know some of those people, not necessarily that got caught, but that are in the upper echelons of FILA and stuff like that.
Well, when you get caught and it's red-handed, then you got to change leadership. And that's what wrestling did right away. But it was a close battle to change leadership. But we got it done. If you don't change leadership, we would not have been back in the Olympics. So that was one of the things. Then the other thing that in wrestling that we have to do for the future, even more, is we have to make sure that we're looking at the gender. It's not just a male sport anymore. It's also a female sport. And because of that, we have to keep pushing in those two directions. Our top leaders and the gender equity.
Okay, let's go to the one that was in the news so much for the last 2.5 weeks, and we'll start down. I want to start with Glenn. Let's talk about Ryan Lochte, an unbelievable athlete. unbelievable acclaim. And, he did some bad things and he lied about it. And you never know. There's people even saying that he'll still be in the next Olympics.
Well, that remains to be seen. One, because of his age. He's 32 years old. He did not perform as well at this Olympics as he has previously. So I kind of have, my feeling is he's probably seen his last Olympic competition in swimming. He will be barred by the United States Swimming Association. How long, we don't know yet. Not too many good things happen when young men come home at 7 a.m. in the morning, Phil, and they've been up all night partying and drinking. So I think this is just another alcohol-related incident that is very unfortunate, and he made some terrible mistakes. I think it got blown out of proportion because he made the innocent statement to his mother, I think, about the police stopped them, and the mother's the one that made that public statement, not him to begin with. And so it was unfortunate. He's had a very, very good career, multi-medal winner at the Olympics. 32 years of age is hard to still be competitive in a sport like swimming, where you have to swim 5 or 6 hours a day and lift weights and do some cross training. I mean, it's an unbelievable performance to make it at 32. But it was a black eye for swimming and a black eye for the United States. It was embarrassing.
One final question on swimming then. Will Phelps come back for one more try even though he said no?
I don't think so. Dan might have an opinion about that, but I think at that age, it's very, very hard. He's now got a daughter or a son. He's got a child. He's got a fiancée that he's going to get married to pretty soon. Life changes a little bit, and other things become more important to you. He certainly made tremendous numbers of millions of dollars that he would not have been able, as Dan mentioned, would not have been able to do that 20 or 30 years ago. But he and Lockie both make a lot of money.
Well, I think the jury's still out on Lochte, and because of that, he's going to have to win Dancing with the Stars to be able to get back into a lot of people's pockets. So we'll follow the drama there.
Well, there is a lot to that because there's a lot of people who obviously watch that show, and if he does well and if he's charismatic and does the right things, he may win a lot of people back from that.
And Phil, the administrators in swimming will be having a decision on that, and Ed's an administrator and involved with this. I'd be interested to see what Ed thinks.
Well, Johnny Orr, former men's basketball coach at Iowa State University, used to always say, "Ooh, nothing ever happens that after midnight that's good." And they were out, they went and they got drunk and they made bad decisions, and he's paying for it, and
Big time.
you don't like to see that. That's an example of what not to do. And so, as Dan talks about lessons that you have to learn in life, hopefully he's learned a valuable lesson. And, it's going to be interesting to see how our society handles his comeback or his, I'd like to see he was contrite the other day when I was watching one of the news interviews. He said he was wrong. He said he made a mistake. And so, yeah, it was contrite, and that's good to see. But was he just saying it because he's out so many millions of dollars, or was he saying it because it was heartfelt and truth? And, that remains to be seen.
What direction, as we wind things down here, what direction are the Olympics headed in? There's the frame of mind that one of the reasons there's so much money involved is because all these people are building all these new things that in many cases aren't used after the Olympics. They're saying they ought to have it at a place like Los Angeles where facilities are already built, New York, Chicago, some other big cities. The future of the Olympics, should there be some rules on, maybe so, what are we talking about? They spent billions, I think, in Rio de Janeiro, and, on maybe we don't need to spend that much money for 2 weeks.
Well, there's some conversation now, Ed. Might know more about this than I do, but there is some conversation in the administrative circles that we should consider a permanent Olympic site, but I don't think it would probably be in the United States. I think that would be more like in Athens for historical reasons or something like that.
I've
Rome.
heard discussions about that. The big thing is when the Olympic Games move from country to country, it establishes pride in that country. And it's also fun for the athletes to go to other countries. Before the Olympic Games in '84, I traveled to Kiev in '83 for the World Championships. I was in Moscow for Tbilisi tournament and Tbilisi later on, but I went to Moscow for a dual meet in January, and we got to travel all over the world. So it's fun to do the traveling, and if you have the Olympics at one place, it kind of takes away from that experience, and I think the athletes would be missing some of the cultural experience that they have when they go to the Olympic Games.
Wrestling's on a mat, swimming's in a pool, but cycling, does it matter to you, for example, on the course, what country or where?
Oh, yeah, every country's different. I mean, you're in Italy and you're in the mountains, you're in Qatar, you're in the desert. It's wild out there. So it's a really cool, it really changes, like this year in Rio. I mean, that was a fantastic course with the climb, and then we don't know where it'll be next. So, I mean, it changes every year, so you got to pick different athletes. It makes it really exciting for the fans, for the coaches to pick the athletes. So,
Well, as we say, being an Olympian is maybe the epitome of sports. Obviously, to wear a medal like Eddie has right here is something you're going to carry with you till the end of your days. We've had an excellent panel, Jason McCartney, Glenn Patton, Eddie the Horse Bannock, and Dan Gable, all of them strongly connected to the Olympics. My wife actually will not watch the Olympics anymore because she can't stand to see somebody that's worked their whole life and they lose out on a medal by 1/100th of a second. And she hates to see that, the despair that comes as a result of that. But it's still one of the greatest things in sports, and these guys are a testament to the Olympics. So we thank you for your time this afternoon, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.